The space around the dead moon was quiet. Too quiet for Admiral Kethver's liking. His long fingers drummed against the command chair of the massive warship Stellar Dominion. The ship was 3 miles long and filled with the best weapons the Zephyrian Empire could build. "Sir, we have a contact," said his second officer, Veltar. The young Zephyrian's blue skin showed patches of excitement. "It appears to be a human vessel." Kethver's 4 eyes focused on the main screen. What he saw made him laugh. The sound was like wind through broken glass. Other officers on the bridge joined in, their voices creating a chorus of mockery. Human ship looked like garbage floating in space. Its hull was covered in ugly patches of different metals. Scorch marks ran along its sides like scars on old skin. Parts of the ship looked like they had been welded on by someone who had never seen a proper welding torch. The whole thing was maybe 600 feet long, tiny compared to the Stellar Dominion. "That is what humans call a warship?" Kethvar asked, his voice dripping with disgust. "It looks like something a child would build from scrap metal." "The ship identifies itself as the Defiance Edge," Veltar reported. "It appears to be a destroyer-class vessel." "Destroyer?" Kethver laughed again. "The only thing that ship could destroy is itself. Look at those weapon ports. Are those actually projectile weapons? Do these primitives still throw metal at their enemies?" The bridge crew found this very funny. Zephyrians had moved beyond such crude weapons thousands of years ago. Their plasma cannons could melt through any known armor. Their energy shields could stop anything the universe could throw at them. At least, that was what they believed. "Sir, the human ship is sending a communication request," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Kethver said, settling back in his chair. "I want to hear what these apes have to say." The main screen changed to show the bridge of the human ship. A woman sat in the captain's chair. She had short brown hair and calm green eyes. Her uniform was simple and practical, nothing like the grand ceremonial clothing Zephyrian officers wore. Behind her, Kethver could see other humans working at stations that looked ancient by Zephyrian standards. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth Federation vessel Defiance Edge," the woman said. Her voice was steady and professional. "You have entered disputed space. Please state your intentions." Kethvar's mouth opened in surprise, then twisted into a cruel smile. Did this human just ask us to state our intentions? As if we answer to such inferior beings? The bridge crew laughed louder. Some of them were actually holding their sides. "Human," Kethver said, standing up to his full 8-foot height. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your vessel immediately. Your primitive technology will be studied, and your crew will be relocated to a world more suitable for your limited abilities." Captain Chun's expression did not change. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Admiral. This vessel operates under the authority of the Earth Federation. We have every right to be here." "Rights?" Kethver's voice rose. "You speak of rights? Your species has barely learned to leave your home planet. You build ships from scrap metal and think you can claim territory in space. Look around you, human. Count my ships." The screen split to show tactical displays. 12 Zephyrian vessels surrounded the lone human ship. The smallest of them was still larger than the Defiance Edge. 3 heavy cruisers hung in space like metal mountains, their hulls gleaming with perfect construction. 9 smaller ships formed a circle around the human vessel, their weapons already charging. "I see your ships," Captain Chun said. "Impressive, but size isn't everything." Kethver's 4 eyes widened. Is this human trying to threaten us? With that floating pile of scrap? "Sir," Veltar said quietly, "perhaps we should scan their vessel more carefully. Some human technology has proven ... unexpected." Kethver waved a dismissive hand. What could we possibly learn from such primitive construction? Look at their hull, Veltar. Half of it appears to be held together with some kind of metallic tape. Their engine signatures suggest they're using chemical propulsion systems that our ancestors abandoned eons ago. On the screen, Captain Chun seemed to be listening to someone off-camera. She nodded once, then looked back at Kethver. Admiral, I'm going to ask you one more time to withdraw from this area. We have no desire for conflict. No desire for conflict? Kethver's laugh was sharp and harsh. Human, your desires are irrelevant. Your ship will be taken for study. Your crew will be processed. Resistance will only make things more difficult for you. I see, Captain Chun said. Her voice remained calm, but something flickered in her green eyes. Well, Admiral, you certainly seem confident. Confident? Kethver spread his arms wide. Human, confidence is what you feel when you face an equal opponent. What I feel is amusement. Your ship looks like it might fall apart if we simply flew too close to it. Behind Captain Chun, the human crew continued their work. They moved with quiet efficiency, checking systems and making adjustments. None of them seemed worried about the massive fleet surrounding them. Tell me, human, Kethvar continued, how many battles has that pathetic vessel of yours seen? Did you find it in some kind of ship graveyard? The Defiance Edge has been in service for 2 years, Captain Chun replied. She's seen her share. Of action. Action? Kethver looked at his officers, who were still chuckling. What kind of action could such a vessel possibly see? Fighting space pirates? Chasing down smugglers with broken engines? Something like that, Captain Chun said. Kethver noticed that the human captain seemed very calm for someone facing overwhelming odds. It puzzled him for a moment, then he dismissed the thought. Humans were known for their strange behavior. Perhaps this was some kind of primitive bravery born from ignorance. Sir, the weapons officer reported, all ships report ready to fire on your command. Excellent, Kethver said. Human, you have one final chance to surrender. Power down Muir. Weapons and prepare to be boarded. Captain Chun was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not the smile of someone who was afraid. Admiral, I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said. What misunderstanding? Kethver demanded. You seem to think we're the ones in trouble here. Kethver's laugh died in his throat. Something about the way the human said those words made his skin crawl, but that was impossible. She was one small ship against 12. She was primitive technology against advanced civilization. She was nothing. Human, he said slowly. Are you suffering from some kind of mental breakdown? Perhaps the stress of facing superior forces has damaged your mind? My mind is fine, Admiral, Captain Chun said, but I'm starting to wonder about yours. You see? A small damaged ship and assume it's weak. You see patched hull plating and think it means poor construction. You see simple designs and believe they indicate primitive technology, because that is exactly what they indicate. Kethver snapped. Captain Chun's smile grew wider. Admiral, has it ever occurred to you that sometimes things are not what they appear to be? Before Kethvar could respond, Captain Chun reached forward and touched something on her command console. All stations, this is the captain, she said, speaking to her crew, but keeping her eyes on Kethvar. Condition read, implement Protocol Omega on my mark. Protocol Omega? Kethver repeated. What is Protocol Omega? Captain Chun's green eyes seemed to gleam with hidden knowledge. You're about to find out, Admiral. You're about to find out. Admiral Kethver stared at the human captain's confident smile and felt his stomach twist. Something was wrong here. No sane being faced overwhelming odds with such calm certainty. He pushed the feeling away. Numbers did not lie. 12 ships. Against one meant victory for the Zephyrians. Cut transmission, he ordered. The screen went black, removing Captain Chun's unsettling smile from view. Sir, Veltar said quietly. The human captain seemed very sure of herself. Perhaps we should scan their ship more thoroughly before we attack. Cuthbert's 4 eyes narrowed as he looked at his second officer. Are you questioning my judgment, Veltar? That pile of scrap metal poses no threat to us. Our sensors have already told us everything we need to know. What do our sensors show? Veltar asked. Primitive hull construction, basic energy readings. Simple propulsion systems, Kethvar replied. The ship appears to be armed with kinetic weapons and some kind of basic energy shields. Their technology is at least 300 years behind ours. On the tactical display, the human ship hung, motionless in space. It made no attempt to run or hide. The Defiant's Edge simply waited, as if challenging the entire Zephyrian fleet to do their worst. All ships, Kethvar spoke into his communication system. This is Admiral Kethvar. The human vessel has refused to surrender. We will disable their ship and take them prisoner. Use plasma cannon only. I want their technology intact for study. Responses came back from all 11 other ships. The heavy cruiser Iron Talon reported ready. The battle cruiser Starpiercer confirmed weapons charged. 9 smaller vessels acknowledged the order and moved into attack formation. Sir, the weapons. Officer called out, should we target their weapons first or their engines? Kethvar considered the question. The human ship was so small and apparently weak that either target would end the fight quickly. Target their engines, he decided. Once they cannot run, we will destroy their weapons one by one. I want them to understand how helpless they are. Yes, sir. The weapons officer's hands moved over his controls. On the main screen, the tactical display showed targeting locks forming on the human ship. Red lines appeared on the Defiant's edge, marking where the plasma cannons would strike. All ships report ready to fire, the weapons officer announced. Fire. Kethvar commanded. Space lit up with deadly energy. 12 ships opened fire at once, sending streams of superheated plasma toward the lone human vessel. The beams were bright blue and moved at nearly the speed of light. Each one carried enough energy to melt through several feet of steel. The plasma struck the Defiant's edge from multiple directions. The ship's shields flared and sparked as they tried to absorb the energy. Sections of the hull began to glow red hot. Pieces of metal broke away and tumbled into space. Direct hits on target, the weapons officer reported. Their shields are down to 60% and falling. Kethvar smiled with satisfaction. The human ship was taking damage exactly as he had expected. Soon it would be helpless. Continue firing, he ordered. The second wave of plasma bolts hit. The human ship even harder. More hull plating tore away. Atmosphere began venting from several breaches, creating white clouds of frozen air around the ship. The Defiant's edge seemed to shudder under the assault. Target shields down to 30%, the weapons officer reported. Hull breaches detected in 7 locations. Through the bridge windows of the Stellar Dominion, Kethvar could see the human ship burning. Small explosions flickered along its hull as systems overloaded. It looked like the ship might break apart at any moment. Try to contact them again, Kethvar ordered. Perhaps now they will be more reasonable. The communication officer worked his controls. After a moment, Captain Chun's face appeared on the screen again. Behind her, the human bridge was filled with smoke and flashing red lights. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. Admiral, Captain Chun said, and Kethvar was surprised to hear that her voice was still calm. You're making a mistake? The only mistake here is your refusal to surrender, Kethvar replied. Your ship is dying around you, human. Save what remains of your crew and give up now. Captain Chun looked over her shoulder at something off-screen. One of her officers said something too quiet to hear. She nodded and turned back to face Kethver. "Admiral, I want you to remember something," she said. "You chose this fight. We tried to warn you." "Warn me?" Kethver laughed. "What could you possibly warn me about? Your ship has maybe 10 minutes before it breaks apart completely." 5 minutes, Captain Chun corrected. "But that's more than enough time." Something in her tone made Kethvar pause. The human captain spoke like someone who knew a secret, like someone who was still in control despite appearances. "Enough time for what?" he asked. Captain Chun smiled that same confident smile she had shown before. "Enough time for you to learn that humans are very good at one thing, Admiral." "What thing?" "We are very good at being underestimated." Before Kethver could ask what she meant, Captain Chun reached forward and pressed a button on her command console. "All stations," she announced to her crew. "Protocol Omega is now active. Release all safeties and bring our girl home." The transmission cut off, leaving Kethver staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew looked confused. "Sir," Veltar said, "what do you think Protocol Omega means?" "It does not matter," Kethver replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "Continue the attack. Destroy their remaining weapons." The Zephyrian fleet fired again. More plasma beams struck the human ship, causing additional hull breaches and system failures. The Defiant's edge now looked like a piece of burning scrap metal tumbling through space. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, his voice strange, "I'm reading some unusual energy patterns from the human ship." "What kind of patterns?" Kethver demanded. "I'm not sure, sir. The readings are inconsistent with our previous scans." Kethver moved to the sensor station and looked at the displays himself. The readings showed energy levels that seemed to be climbing instead of falling. Power signatures that appeared to be coming online rather than shutting down. "This makes no sense," he muttered. "Their ship should be nearly dead." "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice now filled with concern, "the energy readings from the human ship just doubled." "That is impossible. Our weapons destroyed most of their power systems." "Sir, they just doubled again." Kethver stared at the sensor display in growing alarm. The energy readings from the Defiant's edge were now showing levels that matched some of his own cruisers. But that could not be right. The ship was small and primitive. It was falling apart before his eyes. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "the human ship is sending a wide-band transmission." "Put it through," Kethver ordered. Captain Chun's voice filled the bridge of the Stellar Dominion. She was no longer on screen, but her words came through clearly. "All Zephyrian vessels, this is Captain Chun. You have 30 seconds to break off your attack and withdraw to a safe distance." 30 seconds? Kethver snarled. "Or what?" "Or we stop pretending to be helpless," came the reply. On the tactical display, something impossible began to happen. The Defiant's edge, which had been tumbling and burning like a derelict, suddenly stabilized. The hull breaches that had been venting atmosphere sealed themselves. The random sparks and explosions stopped. "Sir," the sensor officer whispered, "the human ship's energy signature just increased by a factor of 10. Kethvar watched in horror as the ship he had been destroying began to change. Hull plating that he had thought was battle damage started to shift and rearrange itself. Sections of the ship that had looked like patches and repairs revealed themselves to be something else entirely. "What is happening?" he demanded. "I don't know, sir," Veltar replied, his voice shaking. "The human ship appears to be transforming." "Transforming into what?" Before anyone could answer, new weapon ports began to open along the hull of the Defiant's edge. They were not the crude kinetic weapons Kethvar had expected. These were something far more advanced. Sir, the weapons officer said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm reading multiple target locks on our ship. From the human vessel? Yes, sir. They have us locked with at least 20 different weapon systems. Kethver's mouth went dry. 20 weapon systems from a ship he had just been destroying? How was that possible? Captain Chun's voice came through the speakers again, calm and professional as always. Admiral Kethvar, your 30 seconds are up. Admiral Kethvar watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before his eyes. The human ship that had been burning and breaking apart moments ago was now transforming into something completely different. The scarred and patched hull. Plating was folding back like flower petals, revealing gleaming metal beneath. This cannot be happening, he whispered. Sir, the sensor officer called out, his voice cracking with panic. The human ship's mass is increasing. The readings show it's now twice the size it was before. That is impossible, Veltar said. Ships do not change size in the middle of battle. But the evidence was right there on their screens. The Defiant's edge was growing larger as hidden sections of hull extended outward. What had appeared to be battle damage and poor construction was actually sophisticated modular armor that had been concealing the ship's true nature. Sir, the weapons officer reported, I'm counting at least 40 weapon ports opening along their hull. These are not kinetic weapons, sir. Energy signatures suggest advanced particle beam technology. Kethver's 4 eyes darted between the various displays. Each one showed impossible readings. The human ship's power output was now equal to his own flagship. Its weapons array was more advanced than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Its hull configuration suggested armor plating that could withstand direct hits from heavy plasma cannons. How? He asked no one in particular. How is this possible? Captain Chun's voice came through the communication system, as calm as ever. Admiral, are you beginning to understand? What you took for primitive construction was actually adaptive. Camouflage. What you saw as battle damage was concealment plating. What you believed was inferior technology was advanced stealth systems designed to fool your sensors. The main screen activated, showing Captain Chun on the bridge of her ship. But this was not the same bridge Kethvar had seen before. The smoke was gone. The sparks had stopped. The damaged control panels were operating normally. Behind the captain, her crew worked at stations that now revealed their true sophistication. You see, Admiral, Captain Chun continued, humans learned long ago that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to let your enemy think they have already won. Deception, Kethver breathed. Your entire ship is a deception, not the entire ship, Captain Chun corrected. The Defiant's edge is very real. She's just not what she appeared to be. Tell me, Admiral, what did your sensors tell you about our vessel when you first detected us? Kethver looked at Veltar, who quickly checked his readings. A destroyer-class vessel, approximately 600 feet in length, armed with basic kinetic weapons and simple energy shields. And what do your sensors tell you now? Captain Chun asked. Veltar's hands shook as he worked his controls. A dreadnought-class vessel, 850 feet in length, armed with advanced particle cannons, railguns, and guided missile systems. Energy shields comparable to our heavy cruisers. 850 feet, Captain Chun repeated. That makes us about the same size as your flagship, doesn't it, Admiral? Kethver's stomach dropped. The Stellar Dominion was 860 feet long. This human ship, which had seemed so small and pathetic, was actually nearly equal to his own vessel in size and apparently superior in weapons technology. How long? He asked. How long what, Admiral? How long were you disguised? How long were you waiting for us to attack? Captain Chun's smile was neither cruel nor kind. It was simply professional. The Defiance Edge has been operating in this configuration for 6 months, Admiral. We have encountered 17 different alien vessels during that time. 15 of them saw a weak human ship and decided we would be easy prey. What happened to those 15 vessels? Kethver asked, though he dreaded the answer. They learned the same lesson you are learning now. The universe is full of creatures who mistake caution for weakness, strategy for cowardice, and intelligence for inferiority. On the tactical display, Kethvar could see his own ships beginning to panic. The smaller vessels were backing away from the transformed human ship. The heavy cruisers were charging their weapons, but their movements showed confusion and fear. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving calls from the fleet. They want to know what their orders are. What orders could he give? Attack a ship that had just revealed itself to be far more dangerous than anything they had expected? Retreat and admit that humans had outsmarted the mighty Zephyrian Empire? Admiral, Captain Sean said, I want you to understand something. Your attack on our ship was not unexpected. We knew someone would eventually see our disguise and decide to take advantage of what they thought was weakness. We were prepared for this moment. Prepared how? Kethvar asked. During the time you spent shooting at our outer hull plating, our computers were analyzing your weapons, your tactics, your ship formations, and your communication protocols. We now know exactly how your technology works, and precisely how to defeat it. The weapons officer looked up from his station with wide eyes. Sir, our targeting computers show multiple system intrusions. Something is accessing our weapons control systems. The humans are hacking our computers? Veltar asked in disbelief. Not hacking, Captain Chun corrected, her voice carrying clearly across the bridge. Learning. Every shot you fired at us contained information about your targeting systems. Every movement your ships made revealed your tactical preferences. Every order you gave showed us your command structure. Kethvar realized with growing horror that the humans had been gathering intelligence throughout the entire battle. While he had been gloating over their apparent weakness, they had been studying his fleet like scientists examining laboratory. Specimens, you used yourselves as bait, he said. We used your prejudices against you, Captain Sean replied. You saw what you expected to see. A primitive human ship with inferior technology. You never considered that we might be exactly as advanced as you are, or that we might have learned to hide that advancement. But why? Kethvar demanded. Why disguise your capabilities? Why not build ships that look as powerful as they actually are? Captain Chun paused for a moment, as if considering how to explain something obvious to a child. Admiral, if you saw a human dreadnought with advanced weapons and heavy armor, what would you do? I would ... double quotes Kethvar began, then stopped. If he encountered a powerful human warship, he would call for reinforcements. He would approach with caution. He would treat it as a serious threat. You would be careful, Captain Chun finished for him. You would not surround it with your entire fleet and move in close for an easy kill. You would not reveal all of your capabilities in the first few minutes of contact. You would not give us the chance to study your technology while you tried, to destroy what you thought was a helpless target. The truth hit Kethvar like a physical blow. The humans had turned his own arrogance against him. They had used his assumptions about their inferiority to learn everything they needed to know about Zephyrian military technology. Sir, the sensor officer called out urgently, I'm detecting weapon charging on the human vessel. Power levels are increasing rapidly. On the main screen, Captain Chun leaned forward in her chair. Admiral Kethvar, you attacked a peaceful vessel in neutral space. You refused our warnings and dismissed our requests for you to withdraw. Under the laws of space warfare, we would be justified in destroying your entire fleet. You would not dare, Kethvar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Would we not? Admiral, you have spent this entire encounter underestimating human capabilities. Are you certain you want to continue doing so? The tactical display showed the Defiance Edge, turning to face the stellar dominion directly. Weapon ports along its hull began to glow with building energy. The ship that had seemed so helpless was now pointing enough firepower at Kethver's flagship to reduce it to atoms. However, Captain Shun continued, humans prefer not to kill when we can avoid it. We are going to give you one chance to reconsider. Your position. What do you want? Kethver asked. I want you to think very carefully about what you have learned here today, Admiral. I want you to consider whether attacking human vessels is really in the best interests of the Zephyrian Empire. Around the bridge of the Stellar Dominion, officers stared at their displays in shock and fear. The ship they had been attacking was now revealed as a technological marvel that surpassed their own vessels in almost every category. And Admiral, Captain Shun added, her voice carrying a note of warning, I want you to remember that the Defiance Edge is not the only human ship operating in this region of space. Admiral Kethver stared at the transformed human ship and felt true fear for the first time in his military career. The Defiance Edge now hung in space like a predator that had finished playing with its prey. Its weapon ports glowed with barely contained energy, all of them pointed at his fleet. Sir, Veltar whispered, what are your orders? Kethver's mind raced. Retreat would mean admitting defeat to a single human vessel, but continuing the fight against a ship that had just revealed capabilities beyond anything they had expected seemed like suicide. We still outnumber them 12-1, he said, trying to convince himself as much as his crew. Even if their ship is more advanced than we thought, we have the advantage of numbers. Sir, the weapons officer called out, the human ship is moving. On the tactical display, the Defiance Edge began to turn, but it was not turning to run. Instead, it was positioning itself to face multiple Zephyrian ships at once. The movement was smooth and confident, like a hunter choosing the best angle to strike. All ships, Kethver spoke into his communication system, maintain attack formation. Concentrate all fire on the human vessel. Their tricks will not save them from overwhelming firepower. But even as he gave the order, doubt gnawed at his mind. Captain Shun had seemed very sure of herself. Too sure for someone facing impossible odds. Admiral, Captain Shun's voice came through the speakers, I tried to warn you. Your pride has made this necessary. What is necessary? Kethver demanded. Teaching you the difference between human weakness and human restraint. The first sign that something was wrong came from the battlecruiser Star Piercer. Admiral, we're experiencing targeting system failures. Our weapons are not responding to commands. Same here, reported the heavy cruiser Iron Talon. Computer systems are showing multiple error messages. Kethver turned to his own weapons officer. Report. Sir, our targeting computers are functioning, but they show conflicting data. The system cannot lock onto the human ship. Every time we achieve target lock, it disappears. On the main screen, the Defiance Edge began to accelerate. It moved faster than any ship its size should have been able to move. Worse, it seemed to flicker in and out of existence on their sensors. Electronic warfare, Veltar breathed. They are jamming our sensors. Not jamming, Captain Shun's voice corrected. Adapting. During your attack on our ship, our AI studied your targeting systems. We now know exactly how your computers identify and lock onto targets. All we have to do is feed them false information. The human ship suddenly appeared much closer than it had been a moment before. Kethver realized with horror that their sensors had been showing them a false position. The Defiance Edge was now less than 2 miles from the Stellar Dominion. Emergency. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted, but it was too late. The human ship opened fire. The first weapons to fire were railguns. Kethfer had never seen anything like them. Instead of energy beams, they fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The metal slugs moved so fast they appeared as streaks of light. When they hit the heavy cruiser Iron Talon, they punched through its shields as if they were made of paper. "Hull breach on Iron Talon," came the panicked report. Multiple decks compromised. The second wave of human weapons fired particle beams that were far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered. The beams cut through Zephyrian armor, plating like a hot knife through ice. One beam struck the destroyer's Swift Strike and sliced it completely in half. "Swift Strike is gone," Veltar reported, his voice filled with shock. "Complete destruction, but the worst was yet to come." Ports along the human ship's hull opened and released swarms of small objects. At first, Kethfer thought they were escape pods. Then he realized they were missiles. These were not ordinary missiles. Each one moved independently, adjusting its course to avoid Zephyrian defensive fire. They worked together like a school of fish, coordinating their attacks to overwhelm. Point defense systems. "Incoming missiles," the weapons officer shouted. "I count over 200 contacts." 200? Kethvar could not believe the number. How can one ship carry 200 missiles? "They are not coming from missile tubes," the sensor officer reported. "They appear to be manufactured and launched from internal fabrication systems." The human ship was building its weapons as it fired them. It was not limited by how many missiles it could carry. It could make more as needed. The first wave of missiles struck the battlecruiser Night Slayer. The ship's point defense systems managed to destroy about half of the incoming weapons, but the rest got through. Explosions bloomed along the cruiser's hull as the missiles found weak points in its armor. "Night Slayer is reporting critical damage to main engines," came the report. "They are requesting permission to withdraw." "Denied." Kethver snapped. All ships continue the attack. But his fleet was falling apart. The destroyer Quick Death had been crippled by rail gun fire. The cruiser Starhunter was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. 2 more destroyers were limping away with damaged engines out and through. The human ship moved like a dancer. It avoided Zephyrian weapons fire with impossible grace, always staying one step ahead of their targeting systems. When they did manage to hit it, their plasma beams struck empty space where the ship had been a split second before. "How are they moving like that?" Veltar asked in amazement. "Predictive targeting," Captain Chun's voice answered, though no one had asked her directly. "Your weapons have specific firing patterns and energy buildup signatures. Our computers predict where you will shoot before you pull the trigger." The human ship spun and fired again. This time, railgun slugs struck the heavy cruiser Iron Talon's main reactor. The explosion that followed lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, the Iron Talon was gone. "Iron Talon destroyed," the communications officer reported. Unnecessarily. Everyone had seen the explosion. Kethver watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by a single human vessel and felt his world collapsing around him. Everything he had believed about Zephyrian superiority was proving to be wrong. Everything he had assumed about human inferiority was being shattered before his eyes. "Sir," the weapons officer said quietly, "should we signal surrender?" "Never," Kethver roared. "We are the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. We do not surrender to primitive humans." But even as he spoke, another of his ships died. The destroyer Fast Wind tried to ram the human vessel, only to have its hull torn apart by concentrated particle beam fire. The wreckage tumbled through space, adding to the growing field of debris that had once been proud Zephyrian warships. "Admiral," Captain Chun's voice came through the speakers again, "you have lost half your fleet. How many more of your people must die for your pride? Our people die with honor." Kethvar replied, "Better death than surrender to inferior beings." Inferior? There was something like laughter in Captain Chun's voice. "Admiral, look around you. Look at what your inferior opponents have done to your superior fleet. Which of us seems inferior now?" The tactical display showed the truth Kethvar did not want to face. Of his 12 ships, 6 were gone completely. 3 more were so badly damaged they could barely move. The remaining 3, including his own flagship, were intact but faced a human vessel that had barely taken any damage at all. "Sir," Valtar said urgently, "the human ship is targeting us directly. Multiple weapon locks detected." On the main screen, the Defiance Edge turned to face the stellar Dominion. Every weapon port on the human ship glowed with deadly energy. All of them aimed at Kethvar's flagship. "Admiral," Captain Chun said, her voice now carrying a tone of final warning, "this is your last chance. Surrender now, or I will demonstrate exactly how inferior your flagship's defenses are compared to human weapons technology." Kethvar looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him with fear and desperation in their eyes. They had watched their fleet die. They had seen human technology prove itself superior to everything the Zephyrian Empire could build. They wanted to live. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you to learn something, Admiral. I want you to understand that human mercy is not human weakness. When we show restraint, it is not because we cannot fight. It is because we choose not to." The human ship's weapons powered down slightly, though they remained aimed at the stellar Dominion. "Today you learned that humans can be very dangerous when we stop holding back. The question now is whether you are smart enough to remember that lesson." Admiral Kethvar sat in his command chair like a broken statue. Around him, the bridge of the stellar Dominion was quiet except for the soft beeping of damaged control systems. Half his fleet was gone. The other half was limping through space, barely able to maintain life support. "Sir," Valtar said softly, "the human ship is requesting communication." Kethvar nodded without speaking. What else could he do? Fight and die? Run and be hunted down? He had no good choices left. Captain Chun appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the bridge of the Defiance Edge hummed with quiet efficiency. Her crew worked at their stations with the calm confidence of people who had won a complete victory. "Admiral," Captain Chun said, "I want to make sure you understand what happened here today." "I understand that we were defeated," Kethvar replied bitterly. "I understand that human technology is more advanced than we believed." "No, Admiral, you still do not understand." Captain Chun leaned forward in her chair. Her green eyes were serious, but not unkind. Technology did not win this battle. Intelligence did. We did not defeat you with superior weapons, though we have them. We defeated you with superior thinking. "What do you mean?" Kethvar asked. "You saw what you expected to see. You believed what you wanted to believe. You made assumptions based on prejudice rather than facts. That is what defeated you, Admiral. Not our railguns or our missiles or our computers. Your own closed mind." The words hit Kethvar like physical blows. He wanted to argue, but the evidence floating around him in the form of destroyed ships made argument impossible. "The Defiance Edge recorded everything that happened here today," Captain Chun continued. "Every weapon signature, every tactical maneuver, every communication protocol. We now have complete intelligence on Zephyrian military capabilities. You will use that information to attack our worlds?" Kethvar said. It was not a question. It was what any military force would do with such intelligence. "Will we?" Captain Chun asked. "Admiral, how many human worlds has the Zephyrian Empire attacked?" Kethvar thought about the question. "None. Humans have no worlds worth attacking." "Exactly?" "We have never threatened your empire. We have never attacked your ships unless they attacked us first. We have never tried to conquer your territory." or enslave your people, then why double Kethve began. Why do we have ships like this? Why do we prepare for war if we do not seek conquest? Captain Shun stood up and walked to the front of her bridge. Behind her, stars shone through the viewports like distant diamonds. Admiral, the universe is full of species like yours. Beings who see difference as inferiority. Creatures who believe that might makes right. Empires that think they have the right to take whatever they want from those they consider weak. She turned back to face the screen. Humans learned long ago that there are two ways to deal with such beings. We can try to become stronger than them, building bigger weapons and larger fleets. Or we can become smarter than them, using their own assumptions against them. You chose to become smarter, Kethver said. We chose both. Our ships are as advanced as any in the galaxy. But more importantly, we learned to think in ways our enemies do not expect. Captain Shun returned to her chair and sat down. Admiral, I'm going to tell you something that will probably shock you. The Defiance Edge is not a unique vessel. It is not an experimental prototype or a special secret weapon. Kethver felt a chill run through his body. What do you mean? I mean that right now, there are 23 other ships exactly like this one, operating in various parts of the galaxy. All of them are disguised as weak, primitive human vessels. All of them are gathering intelligence on potential enemies. 23, Kethver whispered. And Admiral, 12 of those ships are currently operating in Zephyrian space. Your own fleet has encountered at least 3 of them over the past year. Each time, your ships dismissed them as harmless and left them alone. The implications hit Kethver like an avalanche. For months, human ships had been moving freely through Zephyrian territory, studying their defenses, mapping their trade routes, learning their military secrets. And the Zephyrian Empire had let them do it because they appeared to be weak. You have been spying on us, he said. We have been learning about you, Captain Shun corrected. There is a difference. Spies try to steal secrets for conquest. We gather information for survival. Survival? Admiral, your empire controls over 400 star systems. You have a military fleet of more than 3,000 vessels. Your population numbers in the hundreds of billions. Captain Shun paused to let those numbers sink in. Humans control 37 star systems. Our entire military fleet consists of fewer than 200 ships. Our total population is less than 20 billion. Kethver stared at her in confusion. Then how ... if you are so much smaller than us ... How did we defeat you? Simple mathematics, Admiral. If a small force wants to survive against a large force, it must be much, much better than its enemy. Not just a little better. Completely, overwhelmingly superior in every way that matters. But you said technology did not win this battle. It did not. Strategy won this battle. Technology just made the strategy possible. Captain Shun touched something on her command console. The main screen split to show tactical data. Admiral, what do you think would happen if the Zephyrian Empire decided to invade human space with your full military might? Kethver looked at the numbers. 3,000 Zephyrian ships against 200 human vessels. Even if human technology was superior, the numbers seemed impossible to overcome. We would win, he said, eventually. Would you? Let me show you something. The screen changed to show a star map. Red dots marked Zephyrian fleet positions throughout their empire. Blue dots showed human ship locations. Every red dot represents a major Zephyrian military installation or fleet concentration. Every blue dot represents a disguised human vessel that has been studying that installation for months. Kethver studied the map and felt his blood turn to ice. There were blue dots near every important Zephyrian military base. Human ships had been watching them, learning their routines, mapping their defenses. Admiral, if the Zephyrian Empire attacked human space, what do you think those disguised human ships would do? The answer was obvious. They would attack Zephyrian bases while the main fleet was away. They would strike at supply lines, communication centers, shipyards. They would cripple the Empire's ability to support a long campaign. You would attack our infrastructure, Kethver said. We would defend ourselves using the most effective methods available, Captain Shun replied. Just as you would do in our position. But that would mean ... That would mean your empire would face a choice. Continue an expensive war against enemies who know all your weaknesses, or make peace with neighbors who have never threatened you. Captain Shun leaned back in her chair. Admiral, humans do not want to conquer the Zephyrian Empire. We do not want your worlds or your resources or your people. We want to be left alone to develop our own civilization in peace. Then why show me all this? Why reveal your capabilities? Because sometimes the best way to avoid a war is to demonstrate exactly how terrible that war would be for everyone involved. The bridge of the Stellar Dominion was completely silent. Every officer stared at the screen, understanding the true scope of what they had stumbled into. Admiral, Captain Shun said, I am going to make you an offer. You and your surviving ships may leave this area safely. You will not be harmed or pursued. In exchange, you will carry a message back to your empire. What message? That humans are not the weak, primitive species you believed us to be. That we are capable of defending ourselves against any threat. And that we prefer to do so through deterrence rather than destruction. Captain Shun stood up again. Tell your leaders that humanity offers the Zephyrian Empire a choice. We can be enemies, in which case your empire will discover exactly how. Much damage a small, smart, well-prepared force can do to a large, overconfident one. Or we can be neighbors, respecting each other's territory and trading for mutual benefit. And if we choose to be enemies? Kethver asked. Then you will learn that underestimating humans is the last mistake many species ever make. The transmission ended, leaving Kethver staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers waited for orders. Sir, Veltar said quietly, what do we do now? Kethvar looked at the tactical display, showing his crippled fleet and the untouched human ship. He thought about the blue dots scattered throughout Zephyrian space. He considered the choice Captain Shun had offered. We go home, he said finally, and we deliver the message. As the surviving Zephyrian ships limped away from the battlefield, the Defiant's edge remained where it was. Slowly, its hull plating began to shift and change once again. The advanced weapons retracted. The sleek armor folded back into its concealed positions. Within minutes, the ship looked exactly as it had when the Zephyrians first encountered it. A battered, patched, primitive human vessel that appeared to pose no threat to anyone. Captain. Chun sat in her command chair and watched the Zephyrian fleet disappear into hyperspace. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work with quiet professionalism. Ma mère, her first officer said. Should we report the encounter to command? Send. The standard intelligence summary, Captain Chun replied. And note that the Zephyrians now understand the situation.